Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with our daily quiz and look at question number 1. Consider the following statements. But first up, let's look at the context. This is today's The Hindu newspaper. The Supreme Court has instructed the government to ensure that no migrant worker goes hungry. The court has also set July 31 as the deadline to implement One Nation, One Ration Card scheme. Let's look at the question. The One Nation, One Ration Card scheme is aimed at enabling migrant workers and their family members to buy subsidized ration from any fair price shop anywhere in the country under the National Food Security Act 2013. Number 2, implementation of One Nation, One Ration Card is a precondition for additional borrowing by the states. And number 3, Non-National Food Security Act ration card holders are also covered under the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme. Which of the above statements is or are incorrect? Pause this video and let me know in the comment section what do you think is the right answer. Statement number 1 is correct because the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, it is aimed at enabling migrant workers as well as their family members to buy subsidized ration anywhere in this country from any fair price shop. For example, a migrant worker from a village in Bihar, he can access the PDS benefits, public distribution system benefits in Bengaluru where he may be working. So this worker may access subsidized ration from a fair price shop in Bengaluru, whereas his family members, if they are from Bihar, they can access subsidized ration in Bihar. And to promote this scheme, the center has provided incentives to the states. And this is also a precondition. For example, if the states want to borrow additionally, they will have to implement this One Nation, One Ration Card scheme. At least 17 states which have implemented this reform, they were allowed to borrow an additional of 37,600 crores in 2020-2021 because they have implemented this scheme. So statement number 2 is also correct. Statement 3 is incorrect because only National Food Security Act ration card holders are covered under this scheme. So what is the correct answer? C, only 3. West Bengal, for instance, which has not implemented this scheme yet, it has demanded that non-National Food Security Act ration card holders, which is the ration cards issued by the state governments, they should also be covered under the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, which the center has not agreed yet. So that is why C, only 3 is the right answer, because the question is asking you to point out the incorrect statement. Only 3 is incorrect. Staying with this topic, let's look at question number 2. Consider the following statements regarding the distribution of subsidized ration. Number 1, Annavitran portal maintains a record of interstate transactions. Number 2, integrated management of PDS portal records the intrastate transactions. Which of the above statements again is or are incorrect? This One Nation, One Ration Card scheme is based on a technology which works on beneficiaries' ration card, Aadhaar number, and electronic points of sale machine. For example, here is a ration card holder who is a beneficiary. He visits a fair price shop where he can get this subsidized ration. He provides his Aadhaar, and then using an electronic points of sale machine, these details are authenticated to ensure that the benefits reach the intended beneficiary so that there is no duplication, so that there is no leakage. The details of this ration card holder are matched on the Annavitran portal. And this Annavitran portal, what it does, it maintains not the interstate transactions, but it maintains intrastate transactions. For example, inter-district, intra-district. And this integrated management of PDS portal, it records interstate transactions. So Annavitran portal maintains a record of intrastate transactions, which is inter-district and intra-district. And at the same time, integrated management of PDS portal, IMPDS, it maintains the records of interstate transactions. So both these statements are incorrect. C is the right answer. Consider the following statements. And what is the context? This is again the front page of today's The Hindu newspaper Delhi edition. Monsoon session likely from July 19 to August 13. What is the question? Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions of parliament in a year. Number 2, it is mandatory to convene the parliament at least twice every year. Number 3, Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs has no role in convening the sessions of Indian Parliament. Which of the above statements are incorrect? Number 1, Constitution does not provide for 3 sessions of Indian Parliament. It's the rules of business and procedure of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha which provide for sessions of Indian Parliament. For example, budget session, monsoon session, winter session. So Constitution does not provide for 3 sessions of Indian Parliament. Statement 1 is incorrect. It is mandatory to convene the Parliament at least twice a year. This statement is correct. Why? Because Constitution has imposed an obligation that the distance or the time gap between the last day of session 1 and the first day of the session 2, it should not be more than 6 months. That means Parliament must be convened at least twice every year so that the time gap between the last date of session 1 and the first date of the session 2, it is not more than 6 months. So statement 2 is correct. Statement 3, Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs has no role in convening the sessions of Parliament. This statement is incorrect. So 1 and 3, B, is the right answer. Who convenes the session of Indian Parliament? President. But we follow a cabinet form of democracy where the real power is vested with the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. So basically it is this committee, Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs, which is right now headed by the Defence Minister, which is responsible for providing the details to the President so as to advise the President when to convene the session of Indian Parliament and what should be the duration of that parliamentary session. So Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs has an important role to play in convening the sessions of the Indian Parliament. B, 1 and 3 is the right answer. Now let's look at question number 4. India is yet to ratify the 1987 UN Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, UNCAT. The Méndez Principles aim to provide a cohesive blueprint of practical measures to replace torture and coercive interrogation. Which of the above statements is or are correct? Both these statements are correct. C is the right answer. India is amongst the few countries of the world which is yet to ratify this UN Convention Against Torture. Now, what is this Méndez Principle? Again, this is today's The Hindu newspaper. For example, an accused is arrested, a criminal or a terrorist, for example. Now, the investigators need to extract relevant information from this accused. And one way of extracting information from this accused is torture, which goes against the constitutional principle under Article 21 of the Constitution, which is right to life and personal liberty. Now, you might argue that this individual is a criminal, this individual is a terrorist. So why should humane treatment be given to these terrorists? But we need to understand that these individuals are only accused. The police has no role in designating somebody as guilty. This is the job of the judiciary in India's criminal justice system. Only judiciary, based on the evidence provided by the prosecution, can declare somebody as guilty or innocent. So when these individuals are in the police custody, they are not guilty, they are only accused. And if torture is allowed, maybe some innocents are also subjected to this degrading, inhuman and cruel treatment. But then what is the alternative to torture to extract information from these accused? That is something which former UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Mr. Méndez, talks about. He says that we should instead use rapport-based interviews. Investigators and the accused should develop a relationship through various means so that rapport is developed, and then this accused will spill all the beans. And the efficacy of such a thing can be best established by looking at or by reading the recently released book on how the prosecution cracked the 2019 Pulwama attack. There is this beautifully written book written by Rahul Pandita, the lover boy of Bahawalpur, wherein he writes that because there was a rapport developed between the investigators and the accused, that a terrorist who was captured in Jammu and Kashmir, he was able to spill all the beans regarding the 2019 Pulwama attack. Méndez Principle also talk about the same thing, developing rapport, and that is how you can extract information from the accused. Torture is a complete no-no. Let's look at a previous year's question paper, Prelims 2012. In the Parliament of India, the purpose of an adjournment motion is A. To allow a discussion on a definite matter of urgent public importance. And the discussion on an adjournment motion cannot last less than 2.5 hours. And if this adjournment motion is passed by simple majority, it amounts to censure of Council of Ministers. An adjournment motion can be introduced only in Lok Sabha because in parliamentary form of democracy, Council of Ministers are responsible and accountable to the lower house of Indian Parliament, which is the Lok Sabha. Let's look at the fact of the day, sunset clause. What is the context? Have sunset clause for economic laws constraining growth, says Vijay Kelkar. And today's The Hindu newspaper also talks about this column, which will be discussed in detail in today's The Hindu newspaper analysis. And this article talks about various laws such as TADA, such as POTA. Both these laws have been repealed, and UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. What is the sunset clause? Let's say, for example, we are dealing with an extraordinary situation. For example, we are facing terrorist attacks frequently. For example, we are facing some form of insurgency, which is at its peak. In such a situation, because it's an extraordinary situation, Parliament can make a law which can be very harsh, which can be draconian as well. But that is the requirement of the time because we are facing extraordinary situation. But these laws cannot be allowed to continue forever. That is why in such laws which are passed during extraordinary circumstances, there is a sunset clause. Sunset clause means there is a validity for this law. Let's say, for example, the sunset clause in TADA and POTA was 2 years. That means the laws will continue for 2 years, after which these laws will automatically lapse unless and until you go back to the Parliament and Parliament will extend the duration of this law. For example, TADA, when it was passed in the year 1987, it had a sunset clause of 2 years, but then 2 years later the Parliament extended the duration of this law. But ultimately, the Parliament allowed this law to lapse in the year 1995. Similarly, POTA also had a sunset clause of 2 years. But UAPA is a law which does not have any sunset clause. That means this is a permanent law, or the term that we use, a permanent statute. Now, Mr. Vijay Kelkar says, let's say, for example, in current atmosphere where economy is doing badly, where the conditions of the people is also bad, in such a situation, we may have economic laws related to land, related to rent, but these laws should also have a sunset clause because these laws should not be allowed to continue forever. Because if you allow such laws to continue forever, the growth will be affected. That is why Vijay Kelkar argues, have sunset clause for economic laws constraining growth. This is mentioned in Economic Times. That is it from today's daily quiz segment. Thank you for being with us. Have a great evening.